It is a truth universally acknowledged that a miniature artist in possession of a glue gun must be in want of a grand old house to build. Like many a daydreamer, my heart has often wandered through the windswept meadows and candlelit drawing rooms of Jane Austen's world. There's something about the slow grace of it all, ribbons and reticence, glances held just a beat too long. Can you believe it's been 20 years since Joe Wright's breathtaking adaptation of Pride and Prejudice swept us off our feet, when Mr. Darcy, played by brooding Matthew Macfadyen, finally declared, "You have bewitched me body and soul, and I love you." I think we all collectively melted. In the film, Longbourn is portrayed by Groombridge Place in Kent, a real 17th century moated manor, and I must confess, until I began sketching out the build, I hadn't realised just how grand and waterlogged it truly was. With shelf space dwindling, and my builds usually in 1/35-ish Lego scale, I decided to create a portion. One front face, one side, and of course a hint of that romantic moat. I began with the walls and windows, drawing from photographs. And laser cutting the shapes onto card. Wanting the brickwork to feel as true as possible, I turned to cork for texture and crafted a brick pattern on my laser cutter. Then came a rather soothing ritual, mixing up paste of PVA glue, water and grout to add more texture. Each tiny brick was painted by hand in various tones of soft clay, warm rose and sun-faded terracotta. A slow and steady process, but oh, it was worth it. Once dry, I added grout lines and gentle aging washes, softening and weathering the bricks as though time and rain had kissed them over the centuries. A pale blue card lining the inside added depth for any curious peepers. The windows themselves were quite the affair, most being tall sash windows with delicate panes, glazing them with UV resin. I recreated the leading on the roof lights with screen mesh repair tape, perfect for tiny panes. And they were nestled into the frames with a mixture of foam clay, PVA and black paint to prevent any light leaks from peeking through the cracks. Some windows even had faux curtains made from opaque backing to hint at life inside. They felt utterly lived in. A tiny back door was shaped from craft foam and textured with a wire brush and sculpting tools. Before assembling the walls, I constructed the portico. The floor was made from thick foam with stairs cut out. And textured with stone slabs from foam clay using textured rollers, many of which I've printed myself and sized perfectly. All my builds are roughly 1/35 Lego scale. I used a paving pattern and added extra stone-like texture with an ordinary garden rock before it dried. I hand-sculpted banister and column details and made moulds to cast them in UV resin. Textured in the paste and then painted in stone colours. They seemed fine until they didn't. Austen herself might have said, "She's tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me." So I later scrapped them in favour of 3D printed columns and balustrades. I painted all weathering details ahead of time before finally fitting everything together. It's finally time to put all the walls together and build the house. I used another section of cork brickwork to hide the seams and mimic the detail of the original property. Now the main structure's together, I can decide where to cut the building to give me the 2 front faces before designing and adding the roof. The roof was made from Amazon cardboard and tiled with foam clay, using another texture roller. I added roof lights from craft card and continued the tile detailing across. Around the base of the house I used more foam clay and my paving roller to mimic the stonework of the original. Time to scrap the not so handsome enough portico in favour of 3D printed columns and balustrades, using a couple of Thingiverse files scaled down. Painted and aged again. Much better. Now for the moat, a delightful touch I hadn't expected. I built 2 little bridges and bricked the edges. The garden wall was added along with another tiny carved door, as if waiting to be opened by a maid on her morning errands. The moat itself was lined with sculptor mould and painted in those beautifully murky tones from the film, a mix of moss, mystery and muddy water. This is always my favourite part, adding the garden details. At last I had a chance to get out my static grass. Tiny bushes made from moss and foam were dotted around, with ivy creeping over the chimney and moat walls, climbing like secrets at the old brickwork. All flocking for depth and rootedness. Bulrushes were made from wire and dipped in flock, tinted with speed paints and nestled in leaves from a borrowed plastic plant. Wisteria was created by grating polymer clay into powder and pressing it into tiny branches, then painting in romantic pinks and purples. Attached to the bushes like a waterfall of blossoms, as though they'd always belonged to the ivy-clad corners of this grand old home. I topped it off with a gloss of UV resin and a coat of Mod Podge blown with a pipette to make ripples, just enough ripple to catch the reflection of an imagined bonnet or boot. Lavender tufts were made from flake snow glued to a model grass and painted in softer lilac hues. A tiny rosebush trails romantically up the corner of the facade, perhaps tended by a gentle soul with a fondness for solitude and scent. I borrowed a few hedges from previous builds to frame the scene, nestled like old friends returning to visit. To capture the final photos, I set up a backdrop on a large screen in my craft room and arranged trees and grasses borrowed from other builds to blend it all together. A few editing touches later and the scene was set. And there we have it, Longbourn, or at least a lovingly recreated slither of it, inspired by the 2005 film and built for the dreamers among us who still sigh when Darcy walks across that misty field at dawn. Thank you so much for joining me in this tiny corner of Regency, England. I hope you enjoyed this build and perhaps even felt the soft brush of nostalgia as I did. Until next time, may your moss stay green, your glue set true, and your dreams be firmly rooted in miniature magic. Bye bye for now.